Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me, wherever you are, morning, evening, whatever time. So today I kind of want to do like the origin story of this particular channel. A lot of us get saved. A lot of us have got some kind of belief. A lot of us have something that keeps us going. We either call it God, we call it the universe. You know, we have what we believe, and it's one of the things that keeps us stable, keeps us centered, that kind of thing. For me, I got saved. That's a Christian thing. And with time, I discovered the Bible in terms of reading through it, in terms of my background. I was raised in a, what I guess you could call a Methodist home, because in my culture, I'm Motswana. In my culture, on the Christian side of things, when you get married, you take on your husband's religion, and your children then have got to be raised under your husband's religion, so to speak. So if it's a church, then if, for example, if you're a lady and you were raised Catholic and you get married to a Anglican, you switch to the Anglican thing. That was back then. I don't know about now. And so that was my beginning. And as a child, I remember we used to go to church with my mom and my brother. My dad rarely went to church. I don't know what that was. But anyway, and we would have to sit in front. There used to be the like little chairs to the side, to the right side of the beginning or the front of the church. And it was hangover cold. I remember that. It was cold. Summer, winter, it was cold. And if the church was full, from the stage, there were two little steps. Little kids had to sit in front there. Hated that. And my mom would make me sit there, and I'm like, why can't I sit with you? And then she's sitting there with my little brother, and I'm like, I want to sit with you. And I couldn't. She wouldn't let me. And I would have to sit there, and you have this entire church staring back at you, and you're sitting there, your little kid, all squirmy and everything. And totally uncomfortable. I'm saying all this to say, we sat there and went through the whole routine of the church service. And I remember how I used to love the hymns, the singing. And there were about 2 or 3 songs that I used to love. And as I grew up and learned to read, I would get back home and I would take the hymnals and find my favorite my favorite hymns and be singing those. And I guess you could say that's where my journey started. I was probably 6 or 7, because then that's when we stayed in a certain part of town, and I was about that age then. And then we moved. And I think when we moved, then we kind of moved away from the church as well. And my dad stopped going to church totally, no longer sporadically. And I got to high school, and then when I got to high school, then there was YFC, Youth for Christ. And I remember this very sweet girl who invited me, and I couldn't for the life of me say no to her. She was just one of those people who's just ever so nice. And the idea of saying no to her, you kind of feel like a beast, So I ended up going because I just kind of felt guilty. And our school, though, embraced all the other cultures. We had all kinds of different cultures. We were kind of an anomaly because back in the 80s, it was like right in the middle of apartheid and what have you. And so, but we were in the homelands, what we call homelands back then, the segregated parts of South Africa. And we were in the Botswana section, I guess you could call that. And we were a multicultural school. So we had Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Baha'i, all these other different religions. And towards the end of high school, they even started looking into some things like ancestral beliefs and what have you. Um, but YFC was an introduction to me of what you call your charismatic evangelical kind of Christianity. And I guess for me, I feel like I got hoodwinked into it. I didn't really want to go. I went because I felt bad. But I don't remember when I got saved. I do remember afterwards what happened. And I got saved, and the only reason I believe I got saved is because my friend tells me that no, there used to be this teacher which everybody called the Jesus guy because he was this guy called Mr. Gamarov, and by the sound of the surname, you can hear he was not like just an Englishman or whatever. Probably, I don't know, Slavic or something, Eastern European or something like that. And he had this beard. You know, he was clearly probably a product of flower power kind of people. And because I remember his family had the whole kumbi with the kumbi is what do you call it? Like a minivan, I guess you call it, something like that. But that had these curtains in the windows, kind of set up. And I remember his wife in the tie dyes, and they were always a little bit strange, you know, for us anyway. A little bit freer than most people. And he was that guy who wore socks with sandals, Mr. Gamarov, I mean. And I do remember that on Fridays, you know, there would be, it was not a class per se, but there was this gathering at the end of school on Fridays. And I would hear the other kids saying, no, we're going to go to this class and we're going to Mr. Gamarov, what have you. And I guess my friend and I went. I do remember sitting there. It used to be in one of the science lab classrooms, and I remember that because those classrooms were bigger than they were one of the bigger classrooms. So I guess that's why they were used. And we would be sitting on the counter, sitting on the just was very casual, which for us, I guess, being school kids was a unique setting because when we sat there, we would be freer, you know. So we were quite comfortable. We would sit on the floor, on the counters, on the sides, on the desks, and not in the chairs in lines and regimented like normal school. And I don't remember what that man said. I don't want to lie. I don't even remember a thing he said. But my friend said we got saved. What I do remember is seeing some of the senior students, because we used to be divided into junior and senior students. And I remember like a group of guys who were standing in front, and suddenly these guys were falling over. It's like you know, falling over. And then they got up, and it was a spectacle for us. But my friend says we got saved. And I guess out of a sense of obligation, duty, my mother was very big on duty and obligation, all of that. And she loves the word obedient, which led to me growing up hating the word. So anyhow, so there we were, these obedient kids going now to, here's me, the obedient kid now going to Youth for Christ. And getting to Youth for Christ, then you have these kids who've been there for a while. By then, I don't know, I think Mr. Gamarov had left the school by then. You know, it caused a whole lot of crime. We used to get very close to our teachers, you know, even though they didn't teach us whatever, but we were like a big family. Um, and so by then, Mr. Gamarov is gone. We've got Youth for Christ going, and they would then be Friday afternoon after school having these classes. Now these were a bit more regimented, and I think it was because it was black people. Black people like order. Black people, you know, we like to do things on a huge spectrum. And so anything to do with church had to be regimented, you know. So anyhow, there I went, and I remember I was also born. It was a school that had a boarding school as well. So I would go to have lunch after school, boarding school, and then have to go back to Youth for Christ. And we had to take our Bibles. So here's 14-year-old me having to run the gauntlet of young my fellow boy students watching us and always teasing. I mean, these boys, oh, so I would hide my Bible in my armpit and try and walk as fast as possible before anybody saw that I was carrying a Bible. Anyway, we went as if nobody would know that I was going to Youth for Christ, but anyhow, teenagers. So there we went, had Youth for Christ, and then they would make us, it was another class. And for me, I think that's why Youth for Christ died a quick death, because yeah, it was foundational, because they taught us prayer, they taught us to read the word. It was foundational. It was good to get that into us young people. But I think the person that I am, green, purple, blue, pink, the person that I am, I've always kind of gone, if everybody's going that way, I'm going that way, And so it didn't last. And also it made me anxious, truth be told. It made me anxious. It made me remember that Methodist church, which everything was so regimented and everything, you better not put, a foot out of place, a hair out of place, And I guess I was trying to find my way. And trying to see where all of this was going. And in the background was my family, which my parents were going through a hard time. I think at that time in my family, my brother was the happiest person. The three of us, meaning my mom, my dad, myself, were kind of just revolving around each other, trying not to touch. We kind of lived that life. And it was like, I mean, I remember at the time, globally, it was the Cold War. I had the Cold War at home. And what happened then is that I guess I was looking for something more. I can't tell you why I pursued God. And if you read the Bible, God pursues us. So I guess it would be a case of, I can't tell you why I responded, because you have in Revelation where it says Jesus is standing at the door knocking. So perhaps it was me responding to the knocking. I can't tell you why, Anyhow, so be that as it may, at Youth for Christ, one of the reasons it made me anxious was then there would be beginning of the class, they would choose somebody to open the service in prayer. And then these kids would just pray. And I was like, wow. The only prayer I knew at that point was what my mom had taught us as little kids, which was a bedtime prayer, which was basically to say something along the lines of, Jesus, bless my little heart, or something like that, amen, or something like, get in my heart. I don't remember. It was a short line, 2-3 lines that we used to say in the morning. At night, and we stopped, I think, when I was about like 9 years old, because then we were supposed to pray ourselves. But it was something my mother gave us. My mother taught my brother and I, and myself and my cousins would then say the prayer, and perhaps this was the beginning. So at this point, I'm going to pause my story at this point and say, what I'm basically doing is that this channel, I'm sharing what I'm learning. And for today, what I'm sharing is how I started. We all have a start. And as you can hear, my start was not streamlined. It was not in a church, so to speak. It was probably a series of events over a period of time, because as you heard, I mentioned when I was a kid in primary school in South Africa is grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and there were gaps in between. But when my 51-year-old self now looks back then, what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing is God's hand over my life, all the time. And regardless of what I was going through, God was there. My mother had a hand in it. My school teacher had a hand in it. My friend had a hand in it. A schoolmate had a hand in it. And the YFC was people from outside the school. I remember one of the guys' names. I think the guy who led the class, his name was James. I have no idea where he is now. I don't even know if I could recognize him if I saw him. And what I'm saying, and the reason for this channel, is have the conversation, open the door, be aware. And the awareness is of how not useless the lives we live is, and how not pointless the experiences we have are, and how God's wonderful hand of goodness is over us regardless of what life throws at us. The life story of my journey as a Christian is a bit long, so I don't want to make it too long. I just want to cap it here for now, and I'll continue another day, I guess. But I wanted to encourage whoever's listening, if you're wondering if you're in the right place, if you're even the right person, if you're even is there a point? There is a point to your life. And God has got all of that in hand. I didn't see it. I recall my life as a child and most of my adult life as just one long series of painful events, one after the other, of suffering. And if I explain my suffering, it's somebody else's joy, it's somebody else's ease. But I guess the person I am didn't see it that way. But retrospectively, I guess because it's now in the past, it wasn't that horrible. Okay, look, it was horrible. It was horrible. People love to say how they wish they could go back to their childhood. I'm like, oh boy, am I glad my childhood is over. No, I'm not going back there. Thank you. So I guess what I'm saying, guys, is let the journey go on. And let the building happen. Let the trust build. Let the faith roots grow. And never fear questioning your reality, your belief, where you stand, your pain, your sorrow, your joys. There is absolutely nothing wrong with questioning any of those. Because from the day we are born to the day we die, we are living life. And that's what we should do. And life is a series of events. And let the events happen. And they come together like a bouquet of flowers. They are all different. The leaves in the flowers are different from each other. The colors are different. Even if you've got like a bunch of red roses, no one rose is exactly the same as the other. So let the fragrance of the rose of Sharon bloom in your life. Thank you so much for joining me, and I guess I'll continue on the next episode then of this here life I am having. I'm not good with diaries, but hey, I'll continue the diary. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Cheers.